just said that I was a dispensary doctor for 3 years, I think, in Spittal. And I can assure you that there was no organisation in it, good, bad or different. I did an outlying surgery on Thursday, which spent most of the day there out in Connemara. And the premises, I mean, they were like an outhouse. I mean, it's so primitive. There was just a room for the waiting room and a little fireplace there. And I don't believe there was even a proper fire in it. And the door went into another room, and there was a couch and a table, and that was it. And the door wasn't soundproof in any way. And of course we did an awful lot of house calls. There weren't even roads to some of the houses, and even the roads on the what they would call the main road. I had to go through fields, take down the stones, the stepping stones. So it was very primitive. It was lovely. I loved it. Like, I'm not saying, but there was no organisation in it, and you didn't have any anybody to ask if you were, or to discuss cases with them or anything like that. You know, there was very little. There was nothing at the time until probably the college started.
I think there was an undercurrent developing before the Irish College came along in 1984. I can remember when I was a young doctor, a junior hospital doctor, being at a Saturday morning lecture in Galway, when we usually was an expert from the Mass General or something, but this time it was a young doctor from County Cork, Michael Boland, came to tell us about a new form of learning that he'd invented in West Cork with the local GPs. And he described a small group session and how they met every month and talked about problems that were common to them all. And what he was saying was that there was resources within general practice, skilled resources, knowledge resources that were untapped. I can remember an old doctor called Dr. Dyer, Martin Dyer, standing up at the end and saying, "I hope you're all listening to this young man, because this man is bringing the message of how adult education should be done for us doctors." And that, I think that was the start. It was the first time I ever saw GPs begin to think, yes, we have a specialty of our own. What we do is very different from everybody else, and it's very relevant. And that was the first time I thought about it as a junior doctor.
There was a group of them who got together and they founded something called the Institute of General Practice, which was middle to late 70s, and they were talking about how to progress things further. They decided to try and initiate an Irish college.
The Institute provided the forum for the discussion about the development of general practice outside of issues, contractual issues.
The founding members wanted the college to be egalitarian. So John Mason and Cormac Namara and a few people went around the country drumming up support for it. They insisted having a grandfather clause, so everyone who was welcome to be a member, and then only further down the track would you have to go down the exam route. So I think after initial skepticism, a lot of people rolled in with that. And at the meetings at the time, I would have been kind of young, there was just great excitement. And people appreciated that you could get on, you could become a member. It was uniquely Irish.
We were all young, we were energetic, and nothing seemed impossible. So we decided, well, there's never a perfect time to start an Irish college. You know, people are strapped financially, people have difficulty finding the time and the energy to travel from wherever to Dublin and so on for meetings. The Irish Institute of General Practice formed a special committee initially, and that special committee somehow or other elected a few of us as kind of chair, secretary and so on, and I became secretary at this stage. But we were, we were a self-selected bunch. It was very undemocratic in one way. But anyway, off we fired. So the first thing to do was to devise a strategy, to draw up a recruitment leaflet to mail out or to distribute to all potential members, to get the word out among our colleagues through the media, through the clinical societies, and of course really just to get up on our bikes to meet groups of GPs.
My earliest memories are of meetings being held in the Postgraduate Medical and Dental Board with a view to setting up the college. And We called them the group of 22 because there were 22 people on that committee. I subsequently came to know some of them much better than others. So the people whom I remember very clearly from those years were, of course, Michael Boland and Cormac McNamara and James McCormack and John Mason and Manny Berber and Bill Shannon.
I was invited to the first meeting about setting up the Irish College in Oughterard, County Galway. About 200 doctors there. Some fantastic leaders, people with leadership potential oozing out. And Michael, as I mentioned, who were marvellous leaders and had a vision of what they wanted this new Irish College to be. They sold it to the membership. There was some fear at the beginning. Would it work? Had we enough numbers? Would Irish general practice be able to do this thing? But it did. It took seed, and there was tremendous collegiality, tremendous vision, but also energy in a young college. A lot of people gave a lot of time, obviously a lot of voluntary work, a lot of volunteerism in the purest sense. And it really awakened something that was, it pushed an open door.
There was a meeting, I think it was in Oughterard. Michael Boland was there as a young doctor, and he spoke, and I thought he was so elegant that he knew. I just couldn't believe that any of the young doctors, I got so excited with all that was going to happen. And when he sat down beside me, when he'd finished speaking, I said, I wish I could speak like you. It was just brilliant. So I knew that if there's some people like Michael Boland, that the college would be a success. And I wasn't wrong.
The college was starting off then, and it was a very exciting time really, because up to that there was very little happening outside the ICGP, which had a very small branch network really. But the single biggest change then was that suddenly GPs became very interested in each other, because part of that everyone was very separate, very distant, and you didn't really get to know your own colleagues. And if you weren't good enough for a hospital, well then you could always do general practice, and you only had to do is put up your patient. There wasn't any training really required.
And there was a sort of great excitement and anticipation, and I suppose at the same time some caution as was it viable.
The real thing came to me was in 1984 when the first AGM was held, and I put in a paper for that conference. It was accepted, and I was delighted. And it was a great conference, and the standard of material presented was very, very high.
I suppose the striking thing, was just to make the point, was to me the level of voluntarism that existed. I went to a council weekend because they met over the weekend. The standing committees met on the Saturday, and the council met on the Sunday, and they worked through until 8 o'clock at night on the Saturday. They got up on Sunday morning and they worked through until the agenda was concluded, and that could be 6 or 7 in the evening. And you had 60 to 70 GPs from all over the country.
One of the really important outcomes, almost immediate outcomes, is that the college was recognised as the voice of general practice. So within no time at all, we found all the other professional bodies looking to meet with us.
Well, I suppose from small beginnings, the college was first in Corrigan House, maybe 2 rooms, and everybody was packed on top of each other, and there was great joy almost, I think, when the new premises were got in Lincoln Place. I don't know if younger members now are aware of sort of the pioneering work that was done, and that there wasn't that connection between doctors before the college. At least that's what I understand anyway, that people worked in isolation, and now there is great, as I say, fellowship between members.